Hello, welcome to Gridiron Gurus for the Kennebec Journal and Morning Sentinel. I'm Travis Lazarczyk, alongside, as always, Drew Bonifant. Drew, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. Our guest this week is MCI head coach Tom Bertrand. Coach, thanks for coming down.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We have reached the halfway point of the regular season, and Drew, what stands out to you from the first half? Any surprises, expectations, anything like that?
A couple of things. B North, just kind of seeing how that's settled. You see Wyndham going to the top of that region. It makes sense. A team coming down from Class A, that in the lower class they are able to kind of find their footing after a bad season last year. But you just didn't know. You just didn't know how they were going to be able to acclimate to it against a whole new group of opponents. The rest of the teams that are up there, Coney, Lawrence, and Brunswick. Maybe not as surprising. They've been there the last couple of years.
Sure.
Coney could be. I mean, because we just didn't know what they had on defense, didn't know what they had
so
on
many new
offense
faces.
aside from the quarterback position. So they've been able to really hit their stride. And another thing that's kind of surprised me is looking across Class B to the South region. You see 4 3-1 teams at the top there. You knew Kennebunk would be there. You knew Marshwood would be there. But to see Massabesic and Biddeford there, too, it just maybe there's a little more parity there than we kind of thought there would be.
And those 4 teams play each other this weekend with Biddeford and Marshwood playing, and Massabesic and Kennebunk. So that'll shake itself out a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of the theme that we were talking about this past week. You know, a lot of key matchups in our area last week, and it's the same this time, or at least outside our area.
Right. Coach, any surprises in your league? Everyone kind of thought there was some parity this season, and it looks like with you guys at 4-0 and then 3 teams behind you at 3-1, well, that might have been correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's we knew we should be in the top of the league this year, and we knew Winslow and Herman would be up there. I think Belfast has surprised some folks, not me. I knew that seeing them in 7-on-7, they look pretty sharp, and I think that there's some other teams that are going to develop as the season goes along. So I think things are playing out pretty well, but we'll see where that Belfast thing goes.
Sure. One surprise from me, anyway, this year is Freeport making a move up from the Developmental League Class E that was dissolved with the creation of 8-man, moving up to Class C, and Freeport is now 3-0, coming off a big win over Freiburg, which was the state runner-up last year. Only thing that's going to maybe hurt Freeport in the long run is a 6-game schedule. They had a bye built in, and they lost a game to Dirigo when they dissolved the season. So
yeah, I mean that's a good good evidence to kind of the good that could come out of that of what was Class C. You know, that could help. We always talked about getting programs back on their feet if they're having trouble with numbers. And now we're seeing, some teams can go from drop it down a bit to going back up and having some success there.
Yeah, and Maranacook coming out of the E last year, going to 8-man 4-0, the only undefeated team left in the 8-man leagues.
Yeah, I mean there was the unknown factor of just 8-man by itself, but also with Maranacook, you just don't know how their athleticism that they have and the skill players that they have, how they'll be able to measure up to the rest of the teams, because there's some teams that were coming from some big classes that were going down to 8-man. Mount Ararat coming from, I think it was Class B. Last year was either Class B or Class C. I can't quite remember.
B. It
was B. But they have a win over Mount Ararat this year, and they've been winning games both ways. They have a 14-6 win over Boothbay on the schedule. They have a 14-12 win over Yarmouth, but then they've also scored 38 points in that win over Mount Ararat, and they scored 46 against Great New Gloucester. So they can run up the score. They can win a defensive battle. So that's been some pretty good balance and versatility we've seen from Maranacook this season, so that's been a surprise as well.
Right. It's never easy to kind of just rebuild from scratch almost, but Coach, you guys are one of those programs that are a rebuilt success story. It was, with all the success you guys have had recent years with state championships and playoff runs, we kind of forget that before that you had that 0-8 season. Yeah. What was the key to getting MCI turned around?
Well, we knew we had a group coming up through that we had been cultivating when they were, since they were little guys, and we knew that we needed to up our strength conditioning program, and we needed to really focus on that. And we were able to get Woody Moore to come in and join our staff, and he was more than just he was the head coach down at Oceanside.
Sure.
He brought a new energy to our strength conditioning program. That combined with the timing of those kids coming up through, we were all committed to it, and we've had some success, and we're trying to maintain that success and keep elevating that level of standard that we've got. So, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier to stay there once you're there, does it?
Nope, and the competition is always, as you were talking about, the parity's always something that we don't know. It was still new to see. Now that we've been in the league a few years, but still don't really know, other than Winslow, who we year in and year out is going to be a perennial power. So we're glad that we're able to maintain, and we're hoping that we can get to that next level.
Yeah, it seems to always be a surprise team in that league. A couple of years ago, it was Old Town made a run, and now last year maybe Herman. This year maybe it's Belfast, it's Madomic Valley.
Nokomis last year.
Nokomis last year.
Yep.
You guys have probably the toughest opponent in the state this weekend. We're, two 4-0 teams. Wells, defending Class D state champs, makes the move up to Class C this year, and they're coming to Pittsfield to take on you guys with a 32-game win streak. You had a chance to see them last week when they squeaked out a win over Cape Elizabeth. What stands out about this team?
Oh, they're 32-0 for a reason. You look at the sideline and you see just the sheer numbers of kids they've got in their program, and they rebuild and they replace some kids, and their backfield is phenomenal. They're great up front offensively, and their scheme is one that wing T scheme is hard to defend. Defensively, they're flying around. They're well coached, obviously, and then they believe in what they're doing. So, we watched them against Cape, and it was back and forth, and we saw some things that we we're excited about, and some things that gave us some concerns.
Sure.
So, we're game planning for, what we think we can take advantage of, as we always do, but at the same time, it's hard to, discount just who they are and what they do, and when they show up, we know it's going to be a dogfight.
What's something your team's focused on this week to prepare for this game?
Playing from snap to whistle, and that sounds cliched, but playing the whole play. We've had a pretty, it's the first few weeks we haven't had to compete as much as we're going to need to every single play in order for us to be competitive in this game. So making sure we're staying on blocks, making sure we're running to the ball, making sure that we're finishing plays is something that you can become complacent in if you're not challenged week in and week out. And they're going to show up and they're going to challenge us. So we think that's going to be an important thing for us to match. That's how they play football, and that's why they're so successful.
And building off that point about playing that full 48-minute effort, is a fast start more important in a game like this against a team like that is on the streak that they're on and has won all the games that they have and the big games that they have? Because you got to think, you fall behind a team like that. Maybe your team starts to think, oh God, is this going to be the same old story like it has been for so many teams versus another good team that you could be going up against? Is that something that you consider, and that it's more important to really get an early lead against a team like that, or does Wells feel like any other team from that regard?
Well, I mean, the Poland game and the Cape game last week, they scored on them first, and both of those teams scored on Wells first, and that didn't slow Wells down at all. So it's important, of course, but you better be able to maintain it, because they're gonna continue to play the full 48. So that game last week was a testament to that, and lots of lead changes and just a battle for the whole 48 minutes, and we know that's what it's going to take to win this football game, and we're prepared to do that, and we're excited about doing that. So we're looking forward to it. Yeah,
most teams that would lose a Fitzpatrick Trophy winner like Tyler Bridge and would see some drop off, but then they bring in Peyton McKay in the backfield and don't seem to miss a beat.
I tell you, last week you can feel the excitement when he touches the football down at their place. You stand in the crowd and you can hear the guys that are standing around the fence saying, "Oh, okay, I mean, he's got the ball," and I can see why they get excited about that. And you better hit him, and you better have more than one or two guys at the point of attack, because he'll make you pay for it. And he's not the only back that they've got. And there's there are 3 or 4 headed monster down there, but he's certainly a special player.
Is he pretty much something that they just run between the tackles, or do they take him outside? Do they use him in the pass game at all?
They'll throw to him, but really they're trying to get him the ball on that sweep.
Yeah.
On that buck sweep and the counter plays, and he just tries to find a seam, or he tries to get to the edge, and if he gets it, it's tough. So he just keeps those legs going, and he's just a good back and a tough, hard-nosed football player for sure.
You guys have some players in new positions, or guys stepping up this year who maybe didn't see a lot of time last year. But one guy who did see a lot of time, who's kind of been in your program for a few years now, is quarterback Ryan Friend, a junior, started as a freshman, won a state championship for you guys as a freshman. What can you say about his development? Because he seems to be doing a lot more for you guys this season.
Yeah, well, of course, just the fact that he's a junior and has been playing for 3 years gives him that experience that not a lot of kids get. They get thrown in there as a junior or as a senior, and sometimes as a sophomore get a couple of years to develop before that senior year. But Ryan is he's not just a good football player; he's a student of the game. He's watched probably more film than I have this season. Yeah, I'll be honest; he's one of those kids. He studies. He works hard in the weight room. His grades are where they're at. He's a leader for us, and so his development is as a football player, not just as a quarterback, and a student of the game. And he wants to get any edge he can get. There's not an ounce of he's not conceited in any way, and he's very humble. But he's starting to feel a lot more confident in controlling the offense, and we've intentionally sort of put the ball in his hands, so to speak, this year. With all the guys that he's got around him to get the ball to, it's not relying on a couple of backs or a big fullback and packing it in and using him as a complement to that. It all revolves around him for sure.
Is it something he'll say to you? I really feel a lot more comfortable running this play, or I really feel more comfortable with this formation, or is it all just something that you read from him? You can just tell that he plays a little more conviction now than he did 2 years ago.
No, I actually have to dig it out of him a little bit. I know that there's some things that he wants to do, and he's not going to come forward and start trying to tell me what to do. So, just in fact, today I said, you need to get me some stuff that you feel really comfortable with this week. You've watched enough film. You see where we can attack, and let me know some things that you'd like to do so we can get those on the play sheet. So we're getting to that point where he's a little bit more in control of things, and I have all the confidence in the world in him, and as well as the other guys. So he's somebody that's going to continue to develop, but we're glad we've got him back there.
And defensively, it seems like things kind of probably run through Buzzle at linebacker. It's not an MCI team unless they have a Buzzle in the middle of the defense. I think it's in the school charter. What can you tell me about him now that he's a senior, another kid who's been playing a lot of football for you?
He has, and his sophomore year, we made the decision to put him at middle linebacker. We had Adam at middle linebacker. And realized we needed to use him differently and move him around and play him as a strong safety type. But we weren't prepared to do that unless we could find somebody that could play the middle behind his brother. So we knew, much like Ryan, that he was young, but we knew he had the mentality and the physical characteristics to do that. So he did a great job for us as a sophomore and again as a junior last year, and he's definitely a defensive leader.
That's Isaac Buzzle. I forgot to say his first name earlier. There's been so many of them over the years.
Yeah. And in fact, Briar Buzzle, who's their cousin, which he was at practice. He played up at Hudson, played back on some of those teams. That team you talked about that was 0-8. He was a junior that year, and he was a part of us rebuilding that program and the commitment. So you're right. Between the Buzzles and the Bertrands, it's always we got some guys.
The killer
in the
bees. Yeah. All right, let's look at some of the games coming up this weekend. Drew, Coney had a big win last week with a Class A opponent, Lewiston. This week, Windham, a team that came down from Class A to Class B, that's fighting with the Rams for a playoff spot.
Yeah, Windham's actually the first team in the Crabtree points there, even though they have a loss and Coney's undefeated and Brunswick is undefeated as well. It's a good matchup because I feel like these teams are pretty similar in that neither one sticks only to the ground game. They both can move the ball through the air, and Coney does a little more lateral stuff with screens and everything, and Windham will force the ball more downfield, get the tight end involved. But Windham has been a tough team all season. They came back from in the final minute against Gardner to win that game. Their only loss was to Brunswick, who looks great right now. They only lost that game by 13 points. This is a team that battles. So, but Coney's been that team too. So it's hard to imagine this game getting away from either team.
Right. Game that's kind of a crossover between old rivals and the old PTCA. Now Bangor still a Class A team. Skowhegan in PTC Class B. Both 1-3, but Skowhegan seems like they're heading in the right direction. Had a loss at Lawrence a couple weeks ago, but it looked like they were finally getting the offense going after a couple weeks where it was stalling out and unable to complete some drives. Then last week, it seems like they put it all together with a big effort at Gardner.
Yeah, Ryan Libby was saying after that game that they did that game. Games rarely go according to plan, go according to script, but this one did. They got the defense that they were looking for. They got breakout performances on the offense. Mason Fitzgerald, I believe.
Mason Fitzgerald.
Yeah, had a big game. The kind of game they were looking for him to have to kind of announce himself as a top player in that conference. So it does feel like, even though with a 1-3 record, like a lot is going well for them right now. And this is a really good game for them to build on that momentum and continue to try to put themselves right back into the top of the playoff mix. Yep,
these are teams that used to fight each other a lot for PTCA dominance. Bangor has been struggling in recent years. Opened the season with a Week 1 win against a rival Brewer, then has dropped 3 in a row. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you get those A's versus B's. You just don't quite know how it's going to shake out. You probably could have looked at that Coney-Lewiston game and thought that Coney was going to run away with it because Lewiston was off to a 1-2 start, and that game was closer than its score suggested. It was 44-28 at the end, but that game was 9 points at halftime. It was a battle for 3.5 quarters. Yeah,
these cross-class games can be pretty competitive, Coach. You guys opened the season with one down at Winthrop, a Class D school, and they were ahead of you at halftime. They gave you pretty much all you could want.
They did. They came out and jumped, as Drew talked about. They had a strong start and had a great game plan and kind of jumped us a little bit. And our kids had to battle back and get back in a position where we could be competitive in the second half. But they're a team that's going to be competing for that top spot over there in Western D, I'm sure.
And a game that's not in our coverage area here in Central Maine, but one probably everybody in the State's going to be watching on Saturday afternoon. Undefeated Bonnie Eagle travels to undefeated Thornton Academy, and probably the two top teams in Class A, Drew.
Yeah, they're doing their normal thing, just blowing out teams and getting to the top of the standings. It's been the big three like we thought it was going to be at the start of the year. So this is the first of those matchups to see, to pit two of them against each other, and it's hard to pick a favorite for that game. Yeah. I mean, they both look so good. It's hard to look at a flaw or weakness with either one and say, oh, I can see that being exploited. It's gonna be a really good game. Who knows if it's gonna be close, but it's gonna just be a clash like you would be talking about.
Yeah, each team's kind of been tested already. Thornton had that 1-point win over Marshwood, the Class B powerhouse. Mm-hmm. Bonnie Eagle already with a win over Scarborough, the third in that big three in Class A. So should be an interesting game. Coach, do you get to follow any of the stuff outside of your own league at all? Or?
I don't. I'll pay attention to it when it pops up, but there's enough for us to pay attention to right inside of our league and worrying about in the West what's going on. So I tend to focus more on those games, but certainly keep track of some of the guys I coach with in the Lobster Bowl, and talk about Coach Lippert down at Coney and the things he's doing, and I think it's pretty special how he's turned things around down there, and they continue to improve. So other than that, we focus pretty much on week to week what we've got going on in our league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's plenty to be looking at there with with the race that's unfolding in that class. Yeah. So.
Right. Okay, that's going to do it for us this week. We hope you enjoy whatever games you get out to this weekend. For Drew, for Coach Bertrand, I'm Travis. Thanks you for joining this week on Gridiron Gurus.